Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, here to talk about the Emmy nominations, which were announced this morning. The Emmys, of course, honor the best, or at least the favorites, in television and streaming every year. And as happens every year, there were some surprises, there were some expected nominations, and there are a few things that I had a big problem with. So let's talk about all of it. This year's nominations were announced this morning at 8:30 a.m. California time, which the head of the TV Academy termed bright and early. I think the Oscars would disagree. If the sun is up, you are not announcing your awards bright and early. The nomination video itself only lasted about 10 minutes. I don't know if the hosts of the video, Brenda Song and Harvey Guillen, had somewhere to be, but they walked out, they announced a handful of major categories, and they were like, all right, see you later. Here's a big list of things to go through. Why even do the announcement at all? As always, there were some surprising inclusions and exclusions from the awards, so let's drill down into the major categories first. For Best Drama Series, Andor made the cut, which I'm happy about, along with The Diplomat, the much-debated and lower-rated second season of The Last of Us, Paradise, The Pit, Severance, Slow Horses, and The White Lotus. Severance has to be seen as the frontrunner here. It led all shows with 27 total nominations. The White Lotus wasn't too far behind with 23 nominations. And it's good to see The Pit here. Many times a buzzy first season show doesn't quite make the cut, but it and Paradise were able to break through. But let's talk about Andor, because it's great to see it here, and it picked up 14 total nominations, which is awesome. But the Emmys recognized none of the main cast. No Diego Luna, no Denise Goff, no Genevieve O'Reilly, no Kyle Soller, and this is borderline criminal, no Stellan Skarsgård. The only actors recognized for this season of Andor, the last season of Andor, were Alan Tudyk for his voiceover work as K2 and Forrest Whitaker for Best Guest Actor as Saw Gerrera. And honestly, this just smacks of genre bias to me. The fact that none of them made the cut for acting is I think it's nuts. I mean, we'll get to the specific acting categories, but the Emmys did what they seem to always do, which is to overrepresent a few shows, grandfather in some previous nominees, and then ignore some truly great performances. There's a lot more to talk about. In the comedy series category, Abbott Elementary is nominated, along with the show that just splits my sides wide open year in and year out, The Bear. Last year's winner, Hacks, is nominated, along with Nobody Wants This, Only Murders in the Building, Shrinking, The Studio, and the final season of What We Do in the Shadows. The Studio led the pack as far as comedy series nominations with 23 total, which ties it for an all-time comedy record with the hilarious show The Bear. That record was set last year, and it's good to know that the record is now co-held by two legendary comedy shows. For lead actor in a drama, the nominees were Sterling K. Brown for Paradise, Gary Oldman for Slow Horses, Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us, Adam Scott for Severance, and Noah Wyle for The Pit. I have no beef with most of these nominees, and I think it's going to be a pretty good race. But Pedro Pascal in the lead category? The Last of Us Season 2 had 7 episodes. Pedro Pascal appeared in 3 of those episodes, and he was fantastic in those 3. But should you be up for a lead acting award if you appear in less than half the episodes of a season? I think the network should have done the right thing and put him in the supporting category, which would have opened the door for Diego Luna or another actor who actually played a lead role in their series. For lead actress in a drama series, the nominees were Kathy Bates for Matlock, Sharon Horgan for the Apple TV Plus show Bad Sisters, which was a huge surprise. Honestly, I've never heard of that show, but it's on Apple TV, so I guess that makes sense. Britt Lauer for Severance, Bella Ramsey for The Last of Us, and Kerry Russell for The Diplomat. Sharon Horgan is the real surprise here. I mean, she made it into this category over Elizabeth Moss for the last season of The Handmaid's Tale. There were bigger names in the mix like Angela Bassett and Helen Mirren and Keira Knightley. To put this into context, the awards tracking site Gold Derby put Sharon Horgan's chances for being nominated for an Emmy about even with Amanda Stenberg for The Acolyte. I mean, that's just how much of a long shot this was. And it's great exposure for a series that I'm still not entirely confident actually exists. For lead actor in a comedy series, the nominations were Adam Brody for Nobody Wants This, Seth Rogen for The Studio, Jason Segel for Shrinking, Martin Short for Only Murders in the Building, and comedy icon Jeremy Allen White for The Bear. All of these are pretty much expected, although I would love to take the temperature in Martin Short and Steve Martin's makeup trailer on the Only Murders set because they apparently like Marty better. Sorry, Steve. For lead actress in a comedy series, Uzo Aduba was a surprise nominee for Netflix's now canceled The Residents. She made it in over safer bets like Selena Gomez and Natasha Lyonne. Also nominated were Kristen Bell for Nobody Wants This, Quinta Brunson for Abbott Elementary, Ayo Edebiri as the wacky Sid in The Bear, and Jean Smart in Hacks. Let's talk about Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series, where we have 7 nominees from just 3 shows. Severance has 3 nominees, Zach Cherry, John Turturro, and Tremel Tillman. Paradise has 1 nominee, James Marsden, and The White Lotus has 3 nominees, Walton Goggins, Jason Isaacs, and Sam Rockwell. And this is where I think we go beyond the realm of subjectivity when it comes to these categories, because to me, Jason Isaacs and Walton Goggins felt like the leads of this past season of The White Lotus, and Sam Rockwell felt like a guest star. Now, I know that in an ensemble show, the tradition often is to submit the whole cast in the supporting category to avoid messy drama, but I think somebody needs to put their big boy pants on and make the decision here and not just go with tradition, because the 3 from Severance are definitely supporting roles. They are secondary characters to Adam Scott, who's the clear main character, but most of the action in the last season of The White Lotus clearly revolves around Jason Isaacs and Walton Goggins' characters, and including them in supporting shuts out actors like Stellan Skarsgård, who I think should be there regardless. I am a TV Academy member, and I think that this loosey-goosey, well, they get to decide mentality on where networks get to submit shows and performances is kind of nutty. We have to get some oversight here. In the Supporting Actress in a Drama Series category, we have 4 nominees from The White Lotus: Parker Posey, Amy Lee Wood, Carrie Coon, and Natasha Rothwell, as well as Patricia Arquette in Severance, Julianne Nicholson in Paradise, and Catherine Lanasa in The Pit, who was fantastic as Dana, the ER's charge nurse. It would have been nice to see Taylor Dearden here, who was also great in The Pit as Dr. King, but that crush in the supporting category from The White Lotus just didn't leave much room for others. I guess it's also as good a time as any for me to say that after watching this latest season of The White Lotus, I thought it was fine. I mean, it was good. I just don't see why it's been anointed as one of the shows to rule over the Emmys this year. In the comedy world, the nominees for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series were Ike Barinholtz for The Studio, Coleman Domingo for The Four Seasons, Harrison Ford picking up his first ever Emmy nomination for Shrinking, Jeff Hiller for Somebody Somewhere, Eben Moss-Backrack, who I think comes closest to being an actual comedic character on The Bear for The Bear, Michael Urie for Shrinking, and Bowen Yang as the perpetual SNL cast member who's nominated for an Emmy but rarely wins. For Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, Liza Colon-Zayas picks up another nomination for The Bear alongside Hannah Einbinder for Hacks, Kathryn Hahn, who didn't get nominated for Agatha All Along but does get nominated for The Studio, Janelle James for Abbott Elementary, Catherine O'Hara for The Studio, Cheryl Lee Ralph for Abbott Elementary, and Jessica Williams for Shrinking. Moving from comedy and drama to the world of limited and anthology series, this year's Emmy race is shaping up to be a showdown between 2, I think, very deserving heavyweights, HBO Max's The Penguin and Netflix's Adolescence. They are both, of course, nominated in the Best Limited or Anthology Series category alongside Black Mirror, Dying for Sex, and Netflix's buzzy Ryan Murphy show, Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. And this is a tough category for me to call, and it's going to be tough for me to vote for as a voting member of the Academy. And it really only gets more difficult in the lead actor category, where Colin Farrell and Stephen Graham are going head-to-head, along with a pretty strong trio of other nominees, including Jake Gyllenhaal for Presumed Innocent, Brian Tyree Henry for Dope Thief, and Cooper Koch for Monsters. It's one of those situations that makes you wonder if Farrell and Graham could split the vote and open the door for one of the other 3, but in an ideal world, they would just tie, and then we'd all win. For lead actress in a limited or anthology series, Cate Blanchett is nominated, largely carrying the flag for Disclaimer, which had a lot of prestige but didn't really set the world on fire. She's competing with Megan Fahey for Sirens, the only real major nomination for that show, Rashida Jones for Black Mirror, Kristen Milioti for The Penguin, and Michelle Williams in Dying for Sex. This one looks like Kristen Milioti's to lose, but there is some star power in this category, so you never never know. But there is one category in the limited anthology series world that I think should be wrapped up, and that's in the supporting actor race, where Owen Cooper is nominated for Adolescence. With all due respect to his fellow nominees, and that group includes Javier Bardem, who's a fantastic actor, Cooper should walk away with this award easily. And if he does, he will become the youngest male winner ever at the Emmy Awards. And I know that art is subjective, but on a craft level, I just don't see how any other performance could take this award. Jumping around to some other categories of things that stood out for me, in the Outstanding Talk Series, Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Daily Show, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert will all compete with each other, while Last Week Tonight with John Oliver and Saturday Night Live are the only two nominees in the Scripted Variety Series category. And it's really sad to see how much these categories have been whittled down over the years, as late night and sketch TV just isn't made as much anymore. And if you're wondering what makes The Daily Show a talk series and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver a variety series, well, you see, on Last Week Tonight, John Oliver makes sharply scripted observations about the real world and politics. And on The Daily Show, Jon Stewart and the other hosts make sharply scripted observations about the real world and politics, but then they talk to someone else for a few minutes. So as you can see, they're totally different kinds of shows. Some other interesting nominations I wanted to cover: in the Outstanding Television Movie category, Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, which is a theatrical release and a hit in the UK and elsewhere, is competing against Apple TV's The Gorge, HBO's Mountainhead, and two Netflix originals, Nonas and Rebel Ridge. Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal did not get a Best Series nomination in the comedy category, but it did pick up nominations for directing and writing for a comedy series. Arcane's second season picked up a nomination for Best Animated Program. It won that award for its first season, and now it's looking for a second. Martin Scorsese picked up an acting nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series for his role in The Studio. He's nominated alongside fellow director Ron Howard, three other guest stars from The Studio, and Jon Bernthal, who nearly made me pee myself laughing in his latest guest appearance on The Bear. Jamie Lee Curtis also picked up a guest star nomination for The Bear, and her role as Donna, Carmi's self-destructive, emotionally abusive, and unstable mother. Man, that is a performance that belongs next to Lucille Ball's in the TV Comedy Hall of Fame. One cool thing about going through these nominations every year is seeing all of the first-time nominees, and there were some notable names. As I mentioned, Harrison Ford picked up his first Emmy nomination. J.K. Simmons picked up his first Emmy nomination for the online series Die Hard, starring Kevin Hart. Kristen Miliotti's nomination for The Penguin is her first. Anthony Mackie got a nomination for his guest starring role on The Studio, as did Zoe Kravitz, a first-time nominee for guest starring on The Studio. Jason Isaacs' Emmy nomination for The White Lotus is his first. Jake Gyllenhaal picked up his first Emmy nomination, as did Colin Farrell for The Penguin. Javier Bardem's nomination for Monsters is his first time as an Emmy nominee, and Kristen Bell and Chloe Sevigny also picked up nominations for the first time ever. Looking at the overall lead as far as total nominations, Severance had the most with 27, followed by The Penguin with 24. The Studio got 23 nominations, tied with The White Lotus. The Last of Us brought in 16 total Emmy nominations. Then Andor and Hacks tied with 14 nominations apiece. Adolescence, The Bear, and The Pit all had 13 nominations. SNL 50, the anniversary special, brought in 12 total nominations. Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, brought in 11 nominations. And Black Mirror is in the double-digit club with 10 nominations. Of course, as with every year, the conversation is not just about who is nominated, but who didn't get nominated. And these were some surprise omissions for me. I wasn't necessarily mad about all of these, but they were surprising. Squid Game was completely shut out this year. Nothing for its second season, and the eligibility period ended May 31st, so season 2 was eligible. There is still, however, a shot for Squid Game 3 to pick up nominations next year. Agatha All Along was mostly ignored, 3 nominations in technical categories, but nothing for anyone in the cast. I'm glad Kathryn Hahn did get nominated for The Studio, but she was also great in that show, and Patti LuPone, I thought, was a standout, not nominated. The Boys picked up 4 nominations, but 3 of those were in the stunt and original song/music categories. Giancarlo Esposito,
hello, my name is Giancarlo Esposito,
was the only cast member recognized in the guest actor category. I'm not sure what Anthony Starr has to do for the Emmys to recognize his fantastic performance as Homelander in The Boys, but the Emmys have basically one last chance to finally show some appreciation for that performance. House of the Dragon's second season got just 6 nominations, all in technical categories. It began airing at the very beginning of this past year's eligibility window, which might explain its absence. And also, it wasn't that great, which probably explains its absence. But still, it's a big fall from grace from the Game of Thrones dominance of the past. The Handmaid's Tale, which was once an Emmy powerhouse, picked up just 1 nomination for its final season, a guest actress nomination for Cherry Jones. Bridgerton Season 3, which debuted last May but split the Emmy nomination deadline and had to wait until this year to submit for the Emmys, picked up 5 nominations, all in technical categories, so that scheduling decision may have cost it this year. Lord of the Rings of Power picked up just 1 nomination for visual effects, and I don't think that that's really what Amazon had drawn up when they greenlit that show. For context, Rings of Power got 2 fewer nominations than Die Hard, Heart to Kill, the Kevin Hart show that began on Quibi and airs on the Roku channel, and picked up 3 acting nominations for short-form programming. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, was overlooked at the Oscars in the Best Documentary race, but it did pick up Emmy nominations for Best Directing, Editing, and Writing in a Documentary. However, it still got overlooked when it came to Best Documentary, where Deaf President Now, Martha, Pee-wee is Himself, Sly Lives, and Will and Harper will compete for the prize. How a documentary could be recognized as one of the best written, directed, and edited documentaries of the year, which is like basically everything that documentaries are, and still not be recognized as one of the best overall documentaries, I don't understand, but unfortunately Superman will also not be taking home an Emmy. I was surprised that Renee Zellweger wasn't nominated for playing Bridget Jones in what the Emmys is categorizing as a TV movie. And as I've said in previous years, the short form categories, which were initially established to recognize creators on YouTube and other web outlets, are now basically useless when it comes to that purpose. All of the nominees in the short form categories are either behind the scenes or supplemental materials for the late night shows or making of segments for different dramas, especially on HBO. So all of that hype about recognizing new media and, YouTube creators and all of that, that's all gone by the wayside. That award is now just another award for the cable networks and for the studios. And it's really sad because I'm able to nominate in those categories. There weren't a whole lot of YouTubers and shows that are not network shows or streaming shows that were eligible, but there were several, and none of them made the cut. Back in the Honest Trailer days, for a few years, we were part of that first batch of nominees in the short form variety series category. But I feel bad that creators of other web series now seemingly just aren't going to have that chance, because it went from all web series to just a couple and now none. So those are my thoughts on this year's Emmy nominations. We've got a couple months till the show airs and we find out who the winners are. What did you think? Were your favorites nominated? Were they left out? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned right here for the latest in movie, TV, and entertainment news, as well as box office reviews and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.